My dog is bringing me a toy. I don't know why.
Because you need to be happy.
Must feel my aura right now. Okay, so let's see. Just want to get to the right place here on our agenda. Okay, so I've recorded everybody we have. I think we have Jim, John, Bill, James Hendricks. Thank you for joining us. Chris, Wayne, Marion, and Chuck. Am I missing anybody? Nope, good. All right, do you all have a chance to look at the materials that are out on the town website?
Yes.
There were additional requests that were sent in.
No, I didn't see him, Catherine.
Is that Bill?
That's Wayne.
Oh, Wayne. All right. Well, there were some from the school. I'm gonna actually I'm going to let when all is said and done, I'll probably have Jim speak to some of those because I don't think that some of them are really appropriate for this particular committee. So what I do want to do, I think, is I want to share my screen here. I just got to remember how to do it. And to get to the right thing. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Except it's very...
Yeah, except for Wayne, who's on the phone.
Oh, Wayne, I'm sorry. Let's
That's
see.
all right. I'll listen.
Okay, very good. Wayne sent some information today. I haven't had a chance to review all of it, but we will talk about it a bit. I see we don't have Joe tonight, but let's just go down through the top again. What we did was we updated the grand plan, if you will, with what I believe were what we basically agreed on during our last meeting. And I did send out the minutes, so let me know if I got anything wrong. And so this one, if you can see it, I'll try and make it a little bigger for you.
Isn't this the one you sent us as an attachment too?
I think so.
Yeah, I printed it out. It's easy to read.
Yeah, the one that's out on the website. Yeah. All right. But this way I can actually work with it while I'm in,
Understood.
if we change anything. So road resurfacing, we'll have to go back over here. We have the 225,000. The mini excavator, I talked with Joe. This is not an absolute necessity. We could move it over. We're going to have to figure out how and when we're going to be able to get this thing. Two-way radio upgrade. I really appreciate the insights that Wayne offered. I think I'm in agreement with him that this is something where it looks like there are a couple of radios that we could kind of work with to see how well they would work. And that this is something that really takes a little bit more investigation to make sure that we're getting, if we were going to do the upgrade, and we will need to do it at some point, but I don't think we necessarily maybe need to do it right now. It was not considered critical. So that one, and then we also anticipate that it's going to cost more than $20,000. Wayne was good enough to provide some information that indicates that for the kinds of radios that we should probably be working with, there's certainly much more than purchasing the radio. There's certainly the installations, those kinds of things, and all of that, antennas. And really, he understands what another town has done. And in fact, I think it's Coventry or someplace that you got another estimate. It's like 37,000. So this one, I think, is going to take more research and more, maybe a little bit of experimentation before we know what we really want to have for radios. So I recommend moving that over into next year. I want to get your thoughts on that. And Wayne, please speak to it if you would, because Joe's not here.
Well, yeah, okay. To be perfectly honest, I'm on the radio committee at TN, we do 14 towns and 23 departments for their radios. We have like 24 or 25 tower sites. So when you're talking to 7-800, that's off the state backbone of their radio. Those radios cost for a mobile radio somewhere in the neighborhood of $2,500 a piece. You have to put in new antennas on the trucks because they're 7-800 radios versus low band 45 point whatever radios. Are we going to need to go to something like this in the future? Yes. Demas has given EMD for the town of Ashford 2 portable radios that are in this series that easily the town could take and go around the town, all the dead spots, and map out for proliferation and see how it would work. The state believes it'll be around 97%, but nobody's ever done it here. So in order to get there, and I personally think in the future they're going to have to upgrade, and if they're going to do that, they might as well go to the 7-800 series. Currently, the only public works that's doing that in our area is Willington. Coventry's proposing it, and Columbia's proposing it. But the other departments we have around us, we would not have interoperability with them. Which is, and Jimmy, you know this with the town of Bolton, that's a big thing when you're looking for money.
Yeah,
so I would
interoperability is absolutely key.
You cannot get a federal grant for radios unless you do that, and they have to be P25 compliant, which is digital, not analog. So I would suggest we move it.
And we are.
At some point in the future, you're going to have to do something because low band radios will not be made anymore.
Yep.
Okay, so I just don't see it as this year.
Yeah,
So
I think
yep.
moving it gives you the opportunity to do the research and to be sure that what you're doing really is going to add value.
Yes.
And also, does that allow us to also see if there's any sort of grant monies that might be available for that type of upgrade?
Very good point.
I would say so, Chuck. But I guarantee you, if you're going for any federal or state grants, they're going to want interoperability, and they're going to want P25 compliant radios.
Okay.
Which make them very expensive. A portable radio for that's around $2,500.
Yeah.
And the other thing too, Wayne, when we were talking earlier today, one of the insights that you gave is that if a radio is going off, in the truck or whatever, you're not, our public works guys are probably not going to be able to hear it. It's going to end up
if the public works guys are working outside of the vehicle with the noise of what goes on a construction site, they're not going to hear a radio in the truck. The only time they're going to hear a radio in the truck is probably when they're plowing maybe or driving down the road.
Right.
And Columbia's request for a price, which is very similar to the size of the Ashford Public Works, it was in excess of $37,000. I personally would like to make sure the thing's going to work in the town before I commit that kind of money to something.
I think we're all in agreement on that one.
I would agree with that. So, Catherine, what are we doing? Are we just going to move that over as we go down the list, or?
Can you see my screen? Can you see the screen? And you can see I already did. I moved it over. I put it right now. I put it at about 3,700.
Okay. My screen hasn't updated.
Oh, it hasn't?
No.
Uh-oh.
It doesn't matter. It's all right.
Yeah, I'm showing a green box around 20,000 in the 21-22 year.
Let me just check something here. I got to look in the right place. And Okay, how do I share? I'm actually in the Excel file, so I'm now going to, bear with me, okay?
Yeah.
Go to here. Here. I gotta think about how I can do this. Anyway, for right now, I've moved that over. In the meantime, we can start talking about something else and I'll try and figure this out, okay?
Yep, no worries.
All right, so the other thing, the excavator is not required, but at some point in time, what we got is gonna give out. And as Joe was saying, this was to make it so the work would go faster, whatever. I think that this is another one that's gonna have to move over. Because, oh, the other thing I wanted to give you information on, and I did talk with Chuck about this, and I think I mentioned it in passing to Wayne when we were having a conversation, is that a couple of years ago, apparently, there was the state put a 2% cap on the amount that your budget could increase, your general government budget. So think of that as Ashford School, Region 19, town government, I think it's anything else. Those three things. So the concept or the idea of us moving some of these things into line items within the general government budget, it's not going to, I don't think that's going to work. Okay.
Catherine, is that 2% for each budget or total budget?
Total. Now, I don't know what the, bear with me, what the E.O. Smith budget's going to be. I did hear it would go down. Our part of it would go down, our payment. But I don't know what that's going to be. I also don't know what the Ashford School budget is going to be. So, you know, Chuck, you and I are sitting in the same seat on this, so to speak, at this point. So I don't know that if we were to even try to move any of these into the regular general government budget, that would still have us stay below the 2.5%. The other thing in our general government budget that we have to take into account, we do have some increases in the town budget in certain areas that we're going to need to do. Plus we have certainly what 3% the union gets and the whatever. I can't remember what the negotiated thing will be. And I'm not sure that we're at that point yet. So, you know, we have to take that all into account as well. So I don't see the general government budget generally going down, at least not for the town side.
Yeah, I think in the policy that came out, there are some exceptions to it. I have to agree with you. I can't picture these budgets when you total them being less than 2%.
2.5, yeah.
So,
I don't see it that either.
So we might have to do it the way that you suggested here, but I think we have to look at it farther forward and put things in maintenance that belong in maintenance.
Yeah, and
that's my.
I agree. I think that, you know, we got to figure out how to identify those that are truly maintenance.
I agree with you.
Okay. So Chuck, I am concerned as well as I know you are about how do we replenish CNR, and with what has been typically less revenue coming from the state, that's a fact. That's a problem.
Yeah, and also, quite honestly, the efficacy of this particular committee is getting stronger and stronger. More people are aware of it, and so quite honestly, there's more things coming at this committee, all worthwhile ideas and fiscal you know, opportunities, but you know, we can't just keep finding money for these things. I think at some point we're going to have to start we have to figure out how, you know, this isn't sustainable. I mean, this has slowly been bleeding over the years. And this was one of the things, you know, years ago that Ralph was sort of talking about as well. He was just very worried about this particular account, and we're seeing it every year. There's just a little bit less and a little bit less. So anyway.
Let's make sure I'm sharing the right thing. Nope. Give me a sec. I'm still working out the mechanics here. Sorry to be slow.
No worries.
Take your time. So just to refresh my mind, Public Works, we're looking at road resurfacing only in this current year, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So we're not gonna.
I'm not looking at your screen, so.
I understand. Yes, and you got it right. Give me a sec here for the other people. Okay, so we also have the fire truck we've got, the lease, school bus and school van. Please tell me, do we need a van?
We do not need the van until at least 2023.
Yay.
Okay.
Good news.
Catherine, okay. I suggest you increase the school bus to 90 from 88.
Oh, that's right. You had spoken to me about that.
Yep.
Okay, and I want to get back to here.
But I think the one thing that we do need at the school is that heat exchanger.
So we're going to talk about that in a minute. Everybody, I'm going to probably pull that up and read from it so Wayne can hear about it as well. Anybody who's on the phone. I'm just a little slow here. Duh. Share a screen. I just need to pick the right one. Okay. Can you see my screen now?
Yep.
The spreadsheet.
Spreadsheet, I'm sorry.
And we're going to push my little excavator out another year?
Yes, sir.
Why?
Are you brokenhearted?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I don't ask for much, but one of these days we're not going to be able to do what we have to do.
Which I did indicate. In terms of the mini excavator.
Well, the school seems to get everything they want, and my department seems to get nothing every year. I'm getting tired of it.
Thoughts, team, gang?
Well, my personal opinion is, I think what we're doing right now should be a study group and come up and evaluate everything, but not make a final decision until we know where we are with the increases on bottom lines on the three different divisions we talk about, the town government, the school, and E.O. Smith.
Right, and what I was thinking is we could hone this down as, oh, sorry. I
just don't think at this point, and Joe, this is a working meeting, but I think we would not be doing ourselves a favor if we consider any of this carved in stone at this point.
No, and I'm not considering it that way either.
I think we've got to stay flexible and wait till we get a better idea on our other budgets, and including whether or not we're looking at anything unexpected to happen from the state one way or the other.
I think what I'd like to do is get it honed down to the absolute critical things that we need to have in the upcoming year. And we can pull back anything that we think is appropriate once we have some more information, certainly in terms of our general government budget. I know that this will go to the Board of Finance. So I'm going to ask Chuck what his opinion is on that.
What I was going to say is, I just want to remind everybody that this is an advisory board.
Yes.
For the selectmen's ability to help present a budget to the Board of Finance. So I am actually sort of in favor of the concept of being able to move things back in. I sort of agree with Catherine a little bit to try to push it down bare bones. I happen to agree with Joe that the mini excavator is an important item. If there was any way possible to push that back into this year's budget, I think it's probably an appropriate expenditure. But having said all of that, I continue to be very worried about this particular account. So I agree with Catherine's approach to go to the very bare minimum. And if when we get there, it looks like we could absorb the 40,000 for the mini excavator, I would see that as a priority, but that's my own feeling.
Thank you, Chuck.
Chuck, I would have to agree with you.
Yep, me too.
Chuck, or anybody out there, were you anticipating any federal money this year?
Not to my knowledge.
Not that I'm aware of.
All right, let's just go down this and go bare bones. Okay. The ones we've got: reval, fire department, the lease on the truck, yes. School bus, it's now 90,000. The van replacement is not until one more time with feeling, Marion. It's
2023.
2023. So I just want to get to the right year here, 2023. And I'm also going to do this with these. Oops.
Well, you know, once we get the roof replaced and the solar, we may be wanting to go to electric buses.
Yep. We'll let's compartmentalize that for later. Okay. Then we have the roof repair and the engineering. I'm not, first of all, I don't, this cost right here, Jim, you've been looking at the Ashford School Building Committee has been looking at the general costs that we think this could total up to.
Before we get to that, before we have Jim talk, could we just go ahead and look at the things that the school went ahead and put out? Because I think that heat exchanger is like a desperate need or something.
Okay, let me try and get to the thing I need to get to.
I think it said it can't be serviced anymore.
Is that what we're saying?
That's what the note said, that it can no longer be serviced and it's obsoleted.
How do I get this thing to get out of the way? Let me do it this way.
So I guess my question to that is, has it been serviced this year, and can it at least get us through the winter?
I guess so. I mean, I'm not.
Someone needs to tell us.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't talked to Mike about it, but.
How did it come up if it wasn't Mike?
Well, I mean, he probably did. I mean, he put it, I just looked at it through what we got. You know, I haven't, I'm sure Mike is the one that told Jen Barcelow and Dr. Longo.
Mr. Rupert, this is Wayne. I'm gonna try to pick your brain on this.
Yes, sir.
I don't know if it was serviced, not serviced. You have a lot of experience up there at the school with building stuff and in your other jobs. If it isn't done and it's got to be done this year, we need to know that, and we need to know a cost. Okay?
The cost
if it was already serviced, other than a breakdown, do we absolutely need it in this budget cycle? Is the question.
That is the question.
And I agree with that. And for that reason, and also a different reason, you know, some of the discussions that, you know, the school building committee has had, you know, evolve around potentially changing the heating system to a more economical heating system. And I know that, you know, one of Marion's goals, you know, one of her personal goals is she would really like to see, the school over a period of time with the different projects become a net zero school. And that means, investing $36,000 into a heat exchanger that, potentially could be removed at some point in time. When we add to that the underground oil tank has to be changed at some point in the not too distant future. And I can tell you, and I actually looked this up for the school building committee, Willington did a 10,000 gallon underground oil tank replacement last year, and their cost was $107,000.
Yeah, I know it's not.
So, if we add those two things together, if we can, I don't want to say avoid spending the money, because if we need to spend the money on the heat exchanger, we need to spend it so that we can continue to heat the school. But I'd really like to know, personally, how absolutely urgent is it? And, how, we've got a mechanical company that's in there on a regular basis. What do they think the longevity of what's there is, and so that, this committee can make a better decision as to whether or not it absolutely needs to be funded this year. Does it have to be funded next year? Or is it something that can, potentially be limped along in a fashion that, would allows, the Board of Education, Board of Finance, and Board of Selectmen to make decisions about, how we're going to heat the school in the future. I just hate to
agree with you.
I just hate to spend that kind of money if we're going to end up removing it and disposing of it, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, whatever it happens to be. I know that, it certainly, I'm sure it came up during regular maintenance and probably some repairs, that this wasn't going to last forever. But I think it would be really good, like you said, to know what sense of urgency is there with the project. Does it absolutely have to be done this year, or, can it potentially wait until other decisions are made?
My question, how often does it fail?
Heat exchangers don't typically fail. What will happen is they'll start leaking.
So this one said it must be replaced at next service failure.
Well, again, with my experience with industrial grade heat exchangers is that over time they all wear out, but they also can be repaired depending on the quality of the heat exchanger in place. Now, if it's obsolete and they're saying that there's no longer parts available for it, doesn't mean it can't still be repaired.
So shall we try to talk to Mike about that and find out exactly what's going on?
I wouldn't mind. No, I would like to know some more about what's going on. Yes, I think we all would.
So would I.
I'm gonna just weigh in just for a second and express my frustration, not at the people that are sitting in front of us, because they are the sacrificial lambs, but once again, we are here at the very 11th hour finding out about this stuff. And what I'm getting at, this is not the kill the messenger thing. There is a leadership problem, a huge leadership problem at that school. The fact that we have these meetings year after year after year, and we are finding out every year about stuff like this at the absolute 11th hour is extraordinarily frustrating.
Well, one of the things that I had a special meeting with the Board of Ed just before this meeting. And, we don't seem to be sent, the Board of Ed doesn't seem to be sent this information.
That is leadership. That is a leadership problem.
Right.
That is we demand the information and we get the information. And the guy at the helm is not providing the information.
Okay, Chuck, he's retiring this year. We're going to get a new superintendent.
What I'm suggesting is the next one we get isn't so much wrapped up in how the school curriculum works, but actually understands business and is actually a businessman, because that's what this needs.
Okay, Chuck, we get you.
We got it. We got it.
And actually the Board of Ed is now taking a look at the capital plan. I wasn't happy with what we got, and we're going to be our 5-year plan, and we're also going to talk. We decided at the meeting that we're going to talk with Mike. We're going to actually sit down with him, say what is going on, what needs to be done, what kind of maintenance, all that sort of thing, and really try to work it out, what all absolutely needs to be done.
So let me ask this question. We have an Ashford School Building Committee. Okay. That's its own entity. It's an advisory group to the Board of Selectmen. But the school, the Board of Ed has a school building committee.
Yes.
What is that building committee doing if they're not understanding, they're not hearing about these things until basically the 11th hour? How does that work? Am I asking a dumb question?
No, you're not.
Because I would think that you would be getting some foresight on things, because it would have come up in other meetings of that committee. But it seems like it's not coming up until now when we're here in the Capital Improvement Committee for the whole town.
Well, that building committee, for a long time, the committees weren't meeting. Those were.
Who's that?
That was year before last, and then we started meeting the different committees.
But this didn't come up.
This did not come up because it wasn't presented to us. So, I guess we have to ask for it before we can.
No, I would expect that what you would have to ask is who, the person who's managing. I would think that the maintenance on all of this at the school, that person would be asked to provide some kind of status updates on infrastructure pieces that you anticipate you're going to need to upgrade at some point. Okay, that would be what I would expect. I don't know how those meetings are run, but then I would think that information would get to your superintendent and it would get out to all board members. I'm not sure how that's being conducted, or it would be reported back directly to the Board of Education, which is even better.
So when in
a little town with one school with 400 students, everything lands like that on the superintendent's desk. It needs to be demanded by the superintendent. It's that simple. It really is that simple.
And the thing is, when we had
this has to change.
So I think what we have is we had enough that we've said about things have to change. Right now, let's go back to this item. And if I understand correctly, we're going to get some additional information on this. I'm looking at what we have right now. I do want to read it off for Wayne, what we got from what was provided from the mechanical maintenance company. Mechanical maintenance will replace the obsolete and degraded steam to water heat exchanger that serves a major portion of the school building in order to restore reliable and more efficient heating to that space. Included are all rigging services, the disconnection, removal, and disposal of the old heat exchanger, the installation of a new custom-built Bell and Gossett heat exchanger, new black iron piping and fittings were required, all miscellaneous parts and supplies, startup and test for the cost of basically $37,000. Underneath where it says exclusions, it says this is a critical infrastructure replacement as the old heat exchanger can no longer be repaired at next leak episode. This is by the person that came in to do the maintenance. The additional information that we think we need on this board is what?
Whether it can be repaired.
Well, I guess the duration of the latest repair, will that take us through another cycle?
Until we get our bonding stuff done?
I wonder if it would be helpful if perhaps John Calabrese and I were able to have a meeting, you know, of course, by Zoom with Mike Melody and potentially somebody from the mechanical company. You know, I think that between Mike and John and I, we could, you know, get some really good information to potentially bring back to this committee at its next meeting.
Catherine, I have to second that, what Jimmy's saying. John and Jimmy are experienced in this realm. And with the information we have right now, I don't know how we make a decision.
Well, it's like
so I think that should be done and we move forward.
I think what we should do is we should put it in as a placeholder, because if it is an emergency, we don't know that information yet. But if it is an emergency, then we're going to have to fund it.
I agree.
I think we should put it in
it's an emergency
with a placeholder. And then if we get different information, then we can eliminate it.
Well, and if we've got time, what's to stop us from getting a second look from someone else too? This is, you know, Mike Melody's buddy that's been working on it forever. Who knows if it's maybe a little bit high.
Different eyes might see it differently.
Okay. So
well, we're gonna have time. So if John and Jimmy can get together with Mike and get some rationale here for us, I'm sure we're going to have another meeting before this goes anywhere else. We can make a decision then.
Mike
yeah, we're going to have to.
Mike would know how long the repair would take us in terms of what he's been experiencing over the years with the other repairs. So if this current repair could take us another year or two, and we're looking at geothermal or some of the upgrades we've been kicking around with the other committee, Jim, if we can buy some time or at least get some questions answered, it's a good thing.
Yeah, I think that's important to know, John. And I didn't mean to offer your time, but I'm sincerely hoping that you'd be willing to participate in that.
It's my pleasure. And then a quick commentary on the school. I served 4 years on the board. Jim, I think, served 8 years. And
yes, 8 years.
I was there. We started to push. Let's just say we started to push the people in power to stop being so reactionary and try to be a little bit more proactive. But that's a tough paradigm to crack there, in my opinion, because it's always been that way, it seems.
And the other thing is, when we had the Fryer thing done and also the energy audit, we kept asking, what's been done based on this? And it was hard to get the information. So,
okay.
But we're going to keep on top of it.
All right. So I'm going to put it over in, not this coming year, but the year after. And should we find that it is absolutely required, we'll pull it back over into our bare bones plan. Sound correct?
That sounds good.
Jim, when you talk to Mike, would you let me know what you find out?
I'm sorry, I was talking with my microphone muted. Yeah, Marion, as soon as I'll try to set something up with John and Mike. I know, John and I have very, very busy schedules, but as soon as we can set something up, I will let you know in case you'd like to participate.
Okay.
Thank you, Jim.
You're welcome.
Very good. Okay. We had some other requests that came from the school. So I'm going to go to the next one and bear with me while I download it.
Are you looking at the core?
I'm looking at the...
We already covered the $90,000 school bus.
Yep, sorry, very sorry. Get to the right place.
We don't want the Board of Ed doesn't want the core stuff to be considered until we take a look at it, because it's absolutely outrageously expensive.
Okay, I figured that. Let me do this. Download, make it bigger. And I'm assuming you can all see my screen, right?
No.
Oh, you can't?
We're still seeing the spreadsheet.
No, there I am trying to share. Oh, well, let me read you the next one then. Middle school student locker replacement.
Oh yeah.
Based upon the priority, it says it's not urgent, necessary, yes, desirable, yes, deferrable, yes. Okay, and the problem with this, sorry?
I just said defer it, that's all, Catherine.
Yeah, that's
because you got
that's 20 grand towards the mini.
Things here that could become a priority, like the heat exchanger, the mini excavator. I think they should hold higher than lockers. Priority.
What I'm going to do is go back to the spreadsheet. I am going to put this one in there and put it not for this year.
Okay.
To keep track of it, okay?
That's a perfect example of what should be a budget item, shouldn't it?
I was thinking that, but I don't know how they do that. It used to be the school used to do, they used to have a certain amount of, I'm going to call it maintenance that they did. And it was, I thought it was things that were under $5,000, and that's how these things ended up on the capital improvement plan. Could somebody else educate me?
I think that's it. You know, anything above 10,000 or something, 15,000, wasn't it? Went to the capital.
There is a written policy.
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly what it says, but I believe it's either 5,000 or 10,000.
It's 5,000.
5,000.
So it does make you wonder about whether or not we should increase the threshold for what belongs in capital improvements to be something like 10,000 instead of 5,000. And that's something that I think the Board of Finance would make a decision upon. Is that correct?
I guess my other question on this particular item with lockers is if I remember correctly, what this was about was increasing the size of existing lockers so that the current lockers are out of date and they're too small for modern school kids. If I'm remembering correctly,
that's correct.
And what I'm wondering is if this is something that's a school upgrade, why is that not an item that we're bonding for? Why is that not part of a, you know, the roof and the windows? And, you know, I mean, it looks to me like we're trying to put together something to kind of update the school again.
Yeah. I think that can be put off till we do the bonding.
I agree. I don't see any reason why it can't be wrapped into a bigger interior project. Marion, the one thing I did, you know, I don't have the paperwork in front of me because I have a cat sitting on my lap, but
we noticed her.
If I recall correctly, the one thing that the estimate, it was really just for the cost of the lockers. Right. It didn't include installation. It didn't include removal of the existing lockers and disposal of the existing lockers. So right. I think it would be really helpful at some point, even to the school building committee, if that estimate could be updated to include those items.
I'll see that that's done.
And the thing is, what I'd like to kind of draw off of that is that for everything we are asking for, we should have those pieces included, that work included. If we're trying to replace something, you know, what's it going to cost to get rid of the old one? You know, how are we going to handle that? And then if there's additional maintenance that's going to have to occur over the years, anything we know about that, if it's a contract that requires a certain amount of money over the years, that kind of thing. So we should be showing that in this as part of the total cost.
Catherine, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Is Bill still here?
I am.
Okay. So I think this is a question for both Catherine and Bill. It is my impression that the selectmen have been looking at the roof project and the building committee for the roof. It is a broader scope than just a roof, and that we were looking at issues with fire. We were asking the committee to prioritize, and that, you know, we may be trying to do like a roof, some windows, these lockers. Like this is a, you know, we're not going to be bonding every other year on this roof.
I don't think that this is a, I don't think this is a question for us right now. I think this is a question for Jim. Jim, when you're looking at this Ashford School Building Committee, I'm pointing to you because you happen to be the chair of that. When you're looking at the scope that is within your purview, what is your understanding?
Exactly what Chuck expressed, but what our thoughts are, and I think this was included in at least one of the memos that I sent to you from the school building committee. Our thought is, you know, look, we have a leaking roof. We have a solar project that, you know, we canceled several years back because we were waiting for the new roof. And, you know, we have some quality of life issues within the school building. First of all, there's no insulation on the current roof. And when it rains hard in certain classrooms and in the media center, you can't hear yourself think. I think every one of us have been probably at a meeting in the media center when that has occurred. But, you know, by putting a new roof on, we eliminate leakage. We improve indoor air quality because we're no longer, you know, growing mold up above ceilings. We improve our insulation value because there's a minimum requirement for insulation on that roof. And it's a continuous sheet of insulation rather than cavity insulation. So it's really pretty effective. So we reduce our energy costs and we make the interior environment much more comfortable. So the committee's thought process was, we have an immediate issue that really needs to be addressed. Our thought process is, let's plan, you know, this coming year to do the roof and to, you know, to plan the roof and plan the solar. In the following year, you know, if it's the right timing, you know, for the, you know, Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance, you know, they would go out to bond for those projects. And the thought process is that while we're working on those issues, we can then begin to really get into much more detail on, you know, some of the other issues, the code issues, the ADA issues, you know, the core project, you know, getting that space done, things like lockers, looking at, you know, how can we make the overall building more energy efficient for the future? Is it, you know, available, you know, is it reasonable within grasp to make it a net zero school? What are the things that we need to consider, you know, for the next 50 years of life for the building, and how do we achieve making those things happen? And we would anticipate a second bonding project when the, you know, again, when the timing was right, you know, from the perspective of the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance, and would essentially incorporate all of those issues into a much larger bonding project and get that all done in one fell swoop. That's our current thought process. And but the reality is we are a committee that is making recommendations, and it really boils down to, you know, the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance figuring out how and when to be able to finance these projects.
And so what I was going to say is, so that's exactly what so Catherine, I think you and Bill and the selectmen are the leaders of this community, and we're I think what we're asking you to do is help with some direction. As an example, these lockers, is that something that we're putting into this type of thing? Or are we saying, look, we think that something like that really should be bonded because it's part of a larger project? So I think the advisory committee needs a little bit of help from you guys as to what your expectations are coming from them.
Well, I think that the advisory committee already knows. I just heard Jim talk about it. When I think about the $20,000 for lockers, first of all, we don't know that it's $20,000. It might be more than that because there's the dismantling fees, all of that, or, you know, what it's going to cost for all of that. So we don't have that information. typically, I mean, me looking at it from outside would be that would be something that could be its own project because it's not affecting the roof or anything around the roof. It's really, and if it was only $20,000, that wouldn't be something necessarily I would think would be bonded, and it can be done at any time. So it'll be interesting to find out what the cost will really be, to see how big it really is.
So
Does
let me can I interject for just a moment? So let me say this, right? One of the things that we really need to address in a school building is ADA compliance issues, and there could be something to do with those lockers, that we need to consider to meet ADA requirements.
And that's the thing I expect the school, when they're making a request like this, to have already looked at. I do, because it's not the town that's going to be going, what's the ADA requirement? I would think that as part of the maintenance of the building that is being done, that's being managed through the school, certainly the interior, that ADA would be one of the factors you'd be looking at for any number of things.
How would that be facilitated? So in other words, I guess what I'm asking is, there's no one in that building that has that skill set. So how are we expecting the school to follow up? So are they paying like Fryer, for instance, to make that analysis?
Fryer did make that analysis.
And did they say it was an ADA issue?
Well, it didn't say that about the lockers that I remember.
But that's what we're talking.
It has said that about other things.
So
I guess what I'm asking Catherine is what do we, I agree with you that there are some expectations, but what I'm now talking about is what's the practical, how does that happen practically? Who do you call up and say, hey, we want to put in lockers, what does it affect? Because nobody in the building.
I'm sorry. I don't look at it quite that way. I look at it as the school is accountable. They know what ADA requirements are supposed to be, I would expect. Correct?
I think we could find out.
Yes. Sure. So I don't see the town going in and going into the school and going, you're not meeting ADA requirements. I expect the school, when they're proposing a change, to have at least done their homework and understood what the impact would be on ADA.
I can find out about that.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think that if it was already listed as an ADA issue, that would be something that would have been included in the request for a capital improvement.
Very often, your vendors are experts on these issues. And for example, I think when you purchase partitions for restrooms, the people that you talk to about purchasing those can help you with the ADA compliance parts of that. So I'm sure that the manufacturer of these lockers knows if the product that they're specifying meets, ADA requirements, both federally and state. It's not the first time they've sold them. I'm sure it would not be the first time they were asked the question, and it shouldn't cost the school anything to ask them that question and ask them to provide information that demonstrates that the product that they're looking to purchase meets the ADA requirements. I think many of you know that, 10 years of my life was spent as a director of facilities for a school system. And that's how I would have accomplished that, for, that particular purpose. I'd be able to provide documentation.
So for something new, that makes sense. I would expect that the school would understand within their own building at this point in time what is meeting ADA requirements and what's not. And when they're making a proposal to change something, that they've taken that into consideration. And in this particular case, it may be that the current lockers don't meet ADA requirements and that you already have that information. I just didn't see it on the request, which should be.
Catherine?
Yeah.
Catherine, I'm going to have to excuse myself because I have to go somewhere. But what I'd like to input here is I think the priorities after we get to the bare bones should be the wheeled excavator and possibly that heat exchanger for the school. I think when the school puts in a request for money, all areas ought to be covered and explained to the committee when they put the request in, not this piecemeal approach, which unfortunately we go through every year.
Yeah.
But with that said, I'll support the heat exchanger and the wheeled excavator if we have the money to do it.
Yeah.
But that, I'll just wait for you to send me the minutes.
There's one more thing that I think ought to be in there, and it's the upgrade to the HVAC system management, the HVAC management system. Because right now we don't know if there's a problem until somebody goes into the building. I know that Joe's had to go in and check the boiler a number of times just to make sure it's working, when in fact the upgrade would automatically send out a message that it's not.
Okay.
So that's the only other one that I see that I would think would be of more critical nature.
Okay, you can move me towards that one, but I think in the future that should be a maintenance cost.
I agree. If it wasn't the $20,000, you know, and we'll look at whether or not that can be absorbed. I just don't know if it can.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
You guys have a good night.
You too.
Thank you, Chief.
Okay. So, all
Catherine,
right.
if I could just have a second.
Sure.
Going back on a couple of things that Jim had touched on earlier, you know, I think that we may have a kind of a unique opportunity here, because E.O. Smith is just coming to the end of a major project. Well, it's of course much larger than what we're dealing with. There may be some things that we could talk with them that they wish they had planned for, that they were surprised with, you know, in doing their major roof renovations and that may benefit us having that knowledge. So I think it would be beneficial for us to probably talk to their building committee and just see how things are going, what surprises they may have run into, what they wish they had planned to that they didn't. And maybe that can help us when we're looking at our entire scope of work on our project.
Okay, I'll reach out to the superintendent over there. I've been had a couple conversations with her recently, and I'll bring this up and see what we can arrange.
And I've talked to a couple of people on the building committee at EO. So,
did you?
The one thing that I do know is that you have to do the solar and the roof at the same time. You can't do one first and then the other.
Yeah.
That was a problem for EO.
Mm-hmm.
See if they.
I assume they're going to do an as-built report when that project's finished. It'd probably be beneficial for us to take a close look at that.
Yep.
Marion, ask them if they ran into any unforeseen problems that weren't planned for. That's all we need to know right now.
Yep.
I'll ask them. Now, are we going to talk about, Jim, are we going to talk about what needs to be done with the thing by April?
I imagine that Catherine will bring that up. She's running the meeting.
Okay. All right. We had another request from the school, which is for, and bear with me, I just need to get over to it. And it is the completion of classroom renovation project, formerly Tech Ed Space. It's $500,000.
Yeah, that's the core. And I think this Board of Education just looked at that and they're like, no, we don't want this to be considered until we have a chance to look at it.
Okay, so I'm gonna treat that as being basically withdrawn. I'm not gonna put that on the list at this point. Okay.
Yes,
Catherine, I think that's absolutely something that should be wrapped into the work that the school building committee is doing, and we would certainly welcome the input of the Board of Education as to, you know, what they're trying to accomplish. You know, I think as we chatted last, week, Ralph really put together a really great committee here, a group of individuals that, bring a welcome and awesome skill set to the project. So I think, they will have some great ideas to potentially, achieve the goals of the Board of Education and potentially, bring the cost down to something that is much more reasonable.
Yes. We're like, you can build a brand new building for that.
Yeah, it's kind of a shocking number.
Yes, it is.
Yes, that's what I was thinking. Okay. So then we get down to, and let me go back over to here. Can you see my screen now? Do you see the spreadsheet?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Oh. All right. So then there is the roof repair and replacement. And I think, Jim, could you speak to this a little bit in terms of what we're thinking about in general, high level costs?
Sure. So I sent you updated information. I think I sent you a draft information yesterday, and a memo this morning and then updated costs this afternoon.
Oh, I didn't see the updated costs. So why don't you just speak to it in general for me?
Yeah, because I don't have those specific numbers in front of me. But so there's two different projects here that we're looking to get. Potentially, we're recommending to the Board of Selectmen that they consider funding planning funds for the roof repair and for the solar project. During the last week, I've spent a lot of time talking to a lot of different individuals. Fryer and Associates did provide yesterday a draft update and today a final update on the cost for the planning and what the cost of the replacement roof is. So the planning from their perspective is $136,000. The updated roof costs were slightly in excess of $3 million. Sorry, I don't have the document in front of me to tell you what the exact number is. And so the big reason for
$3,753,193.
I'm sorry, say it one more time.
$3,753,193.
So $4 million.
Yeah.
And the reason for the change in cost is because of the change in the energy code requires significant insulation on the roof, which is going to require some brick and block work to raise the parapets. So that has made a tremendous increase in the cost of the roof project. So then the other discussions I've had is I did have a conversation with Superintendent Longo about the costs of the solar planning. And there are a couple of those fees that we really should consider trying to fund immediately. And here's the reason why. The solar, and Marion, you probably have at least as good an understanding of this as I do, is because I know you talked with Mark at length as I did. One of the issues with the solar is that after this year, the Eversource is going to change the way that they enter into contracts with people who are doing solar energy. So right now there's a meter that gets installed with a solar project that measures the amount of energy that the solar array puts into the grid, that anybody can use from the grid. And it also measures the amount of energy that the customer uses. And that's called net metering. And so with the net metering, there are no delivery charges, right? If you look at your electric bill right now, you pay X number of dollars per kilowatt for the energy, but you're also paying for the transmission of that energy over the wires to your service. And so right now those are eliminated, but Eversource has decided that they're not making enough money on these energy transmission charges and such. So what they're going to be doing is over the course of the next year, what they are going to do is change the way that they do business. So they're going to look at somebody who has a solar array on their roof as an energy provider, as if you were a power plant. And they're going to buy energy from you at wholesale rates and then charge you retail rates for the energy that you use, so that that increases the amount of money that they put in their pockets, and it'll cost the solar generator more money at the end of the day for solar. So the expert that Marion found that we talked to suggested it would be really important to begin planning the solar now, and to get our applications in to the Connecticut Green Bank prior to April of this year. And, I'm thinking, well, how do we fund that? That was a total cost, I believe, of $17,500 for 2 out of the 3 pieces that are needed in order to fund that. So, I don't know if it exactly will meet the criteria for, applying to the Board of Finance for using funds from the unexpended fund account. But Superintendent Longo felt that if, these other projects were considered as capital projects, the core project, the lockers, then the Board of Education would likely support, using funds from the unexpended funds account to be able to get the solar taken care of and get the applications in before April. So, that would be one way to reduce the capital expenditure in this upcoming fiscal year. And the other piece that would be very helpful for the school building committee to get done in the upcoming year would be essentially it's energy modeling, looking at the building, looking how energy is used, and looking for ways to decrease energy costs. That cost is $15,000. So, that would essentially be added to the 136 for a total of 151. And that would cover both the roof design and the solar. Now, it's a lot of money. The good news is that some of this money would come back to the town. Part of the information that we would get from whoever is going to plan the solar project at this point, they would be able to predict, forecast about how much money we would get back out of the, funds that we spent this year and the funds that we spent next year for the solar planning, implementation, and the energy modeling. And of course, the $136,000 planning cost for the roof, that would be eventually wrapped into the roof project and would be eligible for reimbursement at the state rate for Ashford. And as I said, last I knew, that rate was around 67%. So it would take a couple of years to get that back, but the town would essentially receive that back, or I guess either receive it back or not spend quite as much on the bonding of the roof.
I have a quick question just for clarification.
Sure.
When you talk about this work that has to be done in order to get the Eversource application in for solar by April of this year, that's like within the next couple months,
yes.
Right? The cost of that is what?
15? Well, $12,500 for one piece of it and $5,000 for the other piece of it. I believe I copied in the memo I sent you today. You should have a copy of that breakdown from Mark Robbins.
Right. So that's 17.5, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And when he
and you're thinking, if I could just finish, and you're thinking that would not be funded through capital improvements. That might be something that's done through the capital, the
unexpended funds.
Yeah.
I think that's what we're calling it. I know at one point we called it the 1% fund, but
yeah, it's unexpended funds. And actually, that's something that is kind of a capital effort, but it is something that would be offset by that funding.
Right.
I'm trying to think of that in a, kind of a,
and
what I'm doing, I'm marking that in red over here because that's something that is, this is the current year.
Yeah, so it's been a while since I was, participating in that. So I don't know. I know that there are particular rules and an agreement in place.
I know all of those. And so does Chuck.
I'm hopeful that it's something that might, fit within those guidelines.
Actually, what fits within the guidelines of that fund is something that is on the capital improvement list that they can apply the funds to. We don't have it on the list other than we have on our list that, it's on the approved list. So we'd have to, I would think that the Board of Finance would certainly look at that and not be averse to those monies being used for that. But that's just me thinking. So I'm sticking it over here to remind myself, okay?
One other thing that Mark said when he was talking to us about this was that it seems like all of the money that's spent for this planning can be recouped in some way. I can't remember exactly how, but
later, it gets recouped later.
Right, but I mean,
unfortunately,
yeah, right.
So Catherine, under potential funding at the bottom of your
exactly
chart, we'll put an also in red 17.5 from 1%.
Yeah, I'll put that in later. And the thing is, what we're really showing in the red here is an alteration to the approved plans that we had last year. And this one is where am I here? Never mind. We've got enough there to understand what that is. Okay, moving merrily along, we also had so I put in here this 151,000 that I put in here for the roof replacement planning and design. Is it 151?
It's 136 for the roof and an additional, I think it was $15,000 for the energy modeling.
You guys are doing great. Thank you. All right, and then the build, what I'm going to call the actual build, we're thinking that's about 4 million.
Yeah, John just read the number. It was 3.7 plus.
Yeah, I'm putting it down at 4 million for now. If that's okay with you?
Yeah. Total project cost $4,093,000. Yeah.
Right.
I think I would just leave it at 4 million. It's just a rough guesstimate.
Well, because also remember, it includes the $136,000 planning fees.
Right.
Okay, so I'm going to take it back down to
so the 4 million. I think is, there probably, of course, will be some price increase between now and then, but we would obviously look to get you accurate pricing again, and clearly it's of a number that would go out to bid. So we would hope to do better than that.
I think that committee has done a remarkable job coming up with a more viable set of, or a more complete set of costs, a better picture for us to look at.
It's been
really, you've done it in a very short period of time. I find that amazing. It's been a busy
week. So
yes, it has.
It's we appreciate it.
I'm just wondering if, well, maybe this is something we should talk during the building committee, but this planning thing is, wow, extremely expensive. Is there any way to bid that out?
Well, again, it's gonna have to go out to bid.
Everything gets bid. Yeah.
I'm hopeful that that cost is reduced, but it's
very expensive for everything.
Okay,
well,
can
it's more than just planning. It's also about overseeing the project. So,
yeah, I understand.
But I would hope that it could be reduced, through the bid process.
Okay.
What's that saying? Measure twice, cut once.
I think
okay. So one of the things in my life's experience in managing projects, it's putting the effort in up front is going to save you a lot in the end. Making sure that you have a really clear picture of what you're going to build and what it's going to cost. It's worth the investment.
Catherine, can I ask a question on this 151 $100,000 for the roof planning and design. Is there another way to fund this outside of this budget, outside of this particular capital budget?
I think the problem is that when you think about doing like I'm going to say a big bonding package, okay, for the whole thing, kit and caboodle. Unfortunately, you have to have this in order to know what this is going to be, and also, if I understand correctly, to understand what our reimbursement's going to be. I don't see an easy way out here yet, and I don't know, Bill, do you have one?
There is no easy way out.
Would we have to go to like a referendum to find money for something like this? If we couldn't fund this through this particular avenue, how would we come up with the money?
I think you'd probably need a special appropriation with
Right.
a town meeting or a referendum.
Right.
So I'm just asking a question. Are we starting to head in that direction with something like this? Or is it the general consensus that we should find that money within this particular avenue? And I guess the other question I have is there a way to start funding capital non-reoccurring?
Let's take the first question first, because the other one is loaded, big time. Okay. On the first one, let me see if I can recall. It was, I think that in terms of funding this particular piece, one, we still need to get through what can we handle overall to still stay within that 2.5 threshold for general government. And if we can absorb this somehow, fine. I don't know that we can, but I think we need to look at that. So that's the only other way I can think of funding it besides capital non-recurring or taking something out of the undesignated fund.
So we can probably swing this, but we are going to tap this almost down to nothing. And
we don't want to get there, because that's going to affect our credit rating. It's a highly dangerous place to be. I think, again, we need to look at what the numbers are. We need to understand what's really available. You know, the undesignated fund balance is one that you manage. The Board of Finance manages in terms of what should be in there, what carries us in terms of if we have issues, you know, making sure that we have enough for 2.5, 3 months of.
Right. So the undesignated fund, the reason we want that to look really, really healthy is because of that 4 million number.
Exactly. Totally. Exactly. And the capital non-recurring fund, you know, everybody needs to remember that when you take money out of the undesignated fund, the excess, what we feel is the excess, and we move it over to capital non-recurring, we're doing two things. One, we're actually putting money in there that is for these big type projects, so that we have the money available, reserved for that at that point in time. The other thing is that I learned years ago, I followed what was something that was going on in Rocky Hill, and was that if you have the money earmarked, for example, it's in capital non-recurring and not in the undesignated fund, if we're sued for something, they can't really go after the capital non-recurring fund. They can only go after the undesignated fund.
Right. So Catherine, is your feeling, and I guess maybe I'm asking a broader question, do you think this committee's feeling is that this is an appropriate place for this level of funding?
I do.
What you're looking at right now, discounting the 17,500 and not having a figure for the school's 1% fund, you're looking at $99,045 for expenditures, $498,245 for revenues, which takes $500,800 out of CNR.
And in CNR right now, as of the last audit, I forgot what we had.
So also, you know, let me also say this. You know, these numbers are hot off the press. I mean, I didn't get these final numbers until like 5 o'clock or something this evening. So let me commit to doing this as well. You know, let me talk with Mike Serrano from Fire Associates, and let's see if we can reduce that 136, you know, and you know, split it somewhat between now and when we go to bond for the roof. So let me, you know, I haven't had that conversation with him, but let me commit to doing that, you know, but between now and the next meeting of this committee, so I can give you some better information to work with. You know, because if we can get away with spending $30,000 or $40,000 now, and the rest, you know, be part of the roof bonding package, that I think that makes a big difference.
Can I just piggyback onto something Jim had said? The 15,000 for the energy modeling is kind of crucial for us as a building committee group to really see what other pieces down the road would make sense to fit into certain parts of different projects. For example, if we can go to geothermal heating and air conditioning, that modeling will tell us what size systems we need. That type of thing would be important. So I think the 15,000 for that, or whatever we can negotiate that down to, is a big part of how we can plug in different things down the road in terms of insight.
Good point, John.
It's information that we can use, and it'll be very valuable.
I agree.
In terms of big picture stuff.
Okay, so speaking of, speaking of the next meeting, I would like to, if at all possible, hold that meeting next Tuesday. Is that possible? Actually, what I'm trying to do is have us march to having good information to put before the Board of Finance on April 23rd. Now, if Chuck were to give us a little bit of a reprieve, that would be great, because we are, you know, we're kind of struggling with this. And we do want to make sure that, first of all, we also will have to have a Board of Finance meeting. Board of Education, Board of Selectmen meeting to, you know, take the recommendations from this committee and then be able to present that to the Board of Finance.
Jim, so, is that going to give us time to talk to Mike before then?
I'm sorry?
I asked Jim, is that going to give us enough time to talk to Mike?
Well, I won't have any issues getting a hold of, you know, Mike Serrano and getting information about if 136 can be split, some now and some, you know, in the bonding package. I don't know, John, if we can meet with Mike Melody and somebody from the mechanical company before then, but we can certainly give it a good shot.
Okay.
So Chuck, I'm sorry. So Chuck, would it be possible? I want us to do things quickly.
Yep.
But would it be possible to delay the presentation of the capital improvement plan to the Board of Finance so that it's presented maybe a couple weeks more out?
I would be very comfortable with that.
All right. So I want to make sure that people are not under such high pressure. You're attending multiple meetings here. So based upon that, what do we think is a more reasonable date for our next meeting or time period? I'd like to have it at least once a week. You know, putting it on Tuesday is shortening it up quite a bit.
Well, do you want to shoot for Thursday again? Thursdays are usually pretty good days from my perspective.
Yeah. Chris, do you happen to know if there's anything Yeah, we have two meetings on Thursday. One is Nimrock and the other one is Board of Finance has a meeting. Is that correct, Chuck?
I believe so.
How about this? What if Chris and I look at where there's some open space, so to speak? Unless you have real dates that you think would work. If we thought Thursday was going to work, then any time after Thursday will work. Correct?
Yeah, I know that Wednesday next week would not be good for me.
Got it.
Tuesday next week would be difficult because it's a contract account day in Westerly, and I'd be pushing to get back here for 7.
All right, so Thursday's out. Yes.
The next meeting that this committee is talking about what we're trying to do. We don't have to go through most of this because we've been through it.
Yep.
So basically, do you think we could do this meeting in I guess what I'm suggesting is, can we meet ahead of the Board of Finance meeting? So can we meet earlier? Let's say 5:30 or 6.
Do you want Jim and John to meet with Mike Melody and the heat exchanger guy before the next meeting?
Yeah, I think that's important.
That would be the plan.
Do you think that's achievable by next Thursday?
We can give it a shot. I mean, that's really going to be, you know, right. I know John and I both have tough schedules, but I think we're both committed to try to make something work.
John, what's your comfort level?
I'm going to make myself available to Jim if he needs me. How's that?
Catherine, do you want to push it off to the 16th, a Tuesday the 16th, for this group to meet again?
Well, let me ask you as a group, how is Tuesday the 16th for you?
Tuesdays are usually pretty good for me. It just makes it difficult for John. As he said, he usually has to be in
Board of Selectmen's meeting.
Oh.
Okay.
Why don't we do it at 6?
Which meeting?
Well, we could do either. I was thinking of this meeting, and then if we had to present something to the Board of Selectmen, we'd be ready.
John, you're not likely to.
As long as I know ahead of time, I can change that. So
okay.
I don't think that we're going to be able to go from this meeting right into a Board of Selectmen meeting and feel like we're ready to present. I think there's going to take a little more thought than that. What about the rest of you?
Tuesdays are never good for me, but
okay.
So the reality is, for me, the 16th would be horrible. I could make it work, but it sounds like the general consensus is there's no good day. So I guess we have to pick a day.
All right.
What about Monday? Is Monday better than Tuesday, the 15th?
Monday is it a holiday?
President's Day.
No, well,
I'll be in Newport. I always celebrate.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we're all going to Newport with you.
We're going with you. We're going to hold the meeting there.
That's sort of the issue with the 16th for me too, actually.
Okay. So again, if I would really like to delay putting this in front of the Board of Finance on the 23rd.
Do we want to try to, I mean, I know everybody, holds their weekends important, but do we want to try to do it on a Saturday morning or something?
That'd be ideal for me.
I'm game. I don't know about the rest of you.
I would be fine with that. Except, I mean, is it going to be on the 13th?
It would be the 13th.
Well, I have guests then. For my bed.
Do you have someone who can represent your needs?
It depends on what time we're meeting.
No, I was saying if you're not there.
I could be there. It would just depend. It would have to be a little bit later in the morning.
Well, what time would be good for you, Marion?
Well, probably after 11, 10:30, 11, something like that.
11 would be ideal for me.
I can make it work.
We'll have to see if we can get a Zoom for that time.
Right.
Does anybody have any objections?
I may not be on the Zoom portion, but give me a number to call into.
Got it.
That's
Okay, so
times, you know.
so that said, it would be 11 o'clock on the 13th would be our next meeting. And in preparation for that meeting, we have, let me go back to here.
John and I have homework to do.
Yep, you got homework to do. I'm not going to elaborate on the homework in the minutes. I'm pretty much going to say this is what it looks like right now, and that we're doing more research, and and that's where we are right now. And I want to go back again when we were talking about the items that we think that, given there were room, that we would consider to be tier 2 items. Tier 1 is what we're showing right now, I think. And I don't know, I'm assuming that this 151,000 is tier 1,
oh, yeah.
which means it's needed, truly needed in the current upcoming year.
Yep.
And that the tier 2 items would be, bear with me, the mini excavator.
Yeah.
So I'm going to mark that in purple. No, blue, whatever. So I'll just treat that like that. There was something else I think that we were talking about.
The heat exchanger.
Yeah, heat exchanger. The only other one that I had that was possibly that is the resurfacing of the tennis courts, because we said we couldn't go out much further, and that if we didn't get it done this year, it had to be done next year.
Yep, I think that's correct.
Okay, and I'm going to treat that as, well, it still could be done next year, so I'm going to leave it where it is. If that sounds okay.
You already have it on 22, 23.
Yeah, I do. I was just, the things that I've moved over, we had moved over here that we moved tonight, that we're looking at as possibly, if we could move them back. This is not going to be one of them in all likelihood. So I'm just marking the ones that we talked about as being essentially tier 2 decision making.
Yep, good point.
And then the only other thing was still got the HVAC thing in here. I'm leaving it here for now unless you're telling me to take it out.
But I didn't hear anybody object.
Okay, but the thing with this is that consider for add to department expense.
Yeah, but as Jim Rupert said last week, for a couple $100 you can get just a.
Oh yeah, I don't have that information.
That's a quick Band-Aid that'll buy us some time.
Yeah, I actually looked it up on Amazon when we were in the meeting last week, and you can get something for like $49 that'll tell you if the temperature goes below a preset value.
And
how many numbers could that reach out to, Jim?
I think just one.
Okay.
Jim, could you humor me and send me whatever that link was or whatever? Because I'm thinking
I will have to employ the assistance of my 21-year-old, but absolutely.
And Jim, if you're scanning, see if there's one that has the ability to have a half dozen numbers, for example.
Call multiple numbers, yeah.
Okay, so when I think about the change in temperature in the building and it being something that we want to be alerted to, one is if it gets cold, the other one is if it gets warm, really warm, like potentially a fire in one area. Okay, and I don't know how quickly that will be detected.
Well, I think you have heat detectors and smoke detectors in the building.
True.
Yeah.
I'll be there next week on Monday, so I'll take a quick look and see what. So I think you're probably covered there already.
Okay, good.
For the in case of fire, the sensors, like I suggested, you might use for a temporary solution, are available for high temperature, low temperature, and humidity.
Okay. And it'll send it out to a cell phone or something like that to tell you?
Yeah, it'll you'll set whatever temperature you want as a, let's say that you're concerned about it getting too cold. So you put a temperature of 52 degrees in there. And if it reaches 52 degrees, it contacts you through a programmed phone number that you put into the unit.
Okay. I couldn't quite hear that. Oh, maybe that's something else. Thank you. I had forgotten that you told me about that. So
that's okay. I'll dig up some information and share it with you.
Okay. So for right now, I am going to move it over. If that's okay with you.
Yep.
Yes.
Because if we can lick that problem another way, that's great.
Catherine, just as and Jim, maybe you know this more. It was my very feeble understanding that HVAC system upgrade wasn't just as a warning system. There were other boards and so forth that need to be updated. Do you understand what that means?
What they said was they couldn't get any more circuit boards for them.
Yeah, the software's been obsoleted.
The software is obsolete, but there's also physical circuit boards that they use.
So what we're saying then is that 20,000 would allow us to upgrade, and one of the benefits of that upgrade would be a warning system.
Well, I think the other benefit is that, right now that current control, the current building control module is only accessible and operational from the office of the first selectman.
From my computer.
Right. So, it would be better if whoever is managing the maintenance of the building, has the availability to do it from Newport if they're on vacation or.
Right.
And that's what that $20,000 gets you, because what you can do is you get the notice, and whoever is given access to the system can, on their phone or whatever, pull up the system and take a look at it and make whatever changes they need to make.
Yeah. And it may even give you, a trouble code that says, E9 is potentially a heat exchanger issue, or, the filter's plugged, could be, it may have the ability to give you some diagnostics.
I would.
Yes, it does.
I guess. I guess to just throw 2 cents in on this, sort of along the way that Wayne did, is I would see this also as an item that if there was any way possible to put it back in, we should.
I agree.
Okay, so I'm going to mark this one as purple as well. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the last thing you want to do is to, get into, the heating or cooling season in the upcoming year, have not funded it, and, oh, gee, by the way, it's broken. We can't get parts for it.
Right.
Yeah, I want to make sure. I'm sorry.
Then you're looking at coming up with the 20 grand some other way.
Right.
Right. And I hate to be penny wise and pound foolish.
That's what this is starting to border on feeling like. So yes, I agree with you.
All right.
Well, a few minutes ago, we had a conversation about, we want the school to plan ahead and not be reactionary. And this kind of really falls into the same category. It's really about, planning ahead for a problem that we know is going to occur at some point.
I agree.
Right. I'm there too. So thank you. All right. So I think we're in a good place. You know what the follow-ups need to be. We know when our next meeting is going to be. We'll check and make sure we've got Zoom support for that meeting. Is there anything else tonight?
Catherine, one of the things I do want to just say is I personally very much rely on this particular grid that you've been developing. I find this to be the most important document that we deal with this thing. So when you get it to the point where you're comfortable with the information that's in there, if you could send it out again.
I'm going to send it as an attachment to the minutes.
That'll be perfect. Great. Thank you.
And that way you'll have the most up-to-date information. And also if the public wants to look at it, they can look at it too. Just make sure that in the minutes, it's just that this is still a work in progress. And, you know, we've honed it down to, you know, whatever, it's a work in progress.
Yep.
Okay. Are we ready to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Actually, I haven't bothered with any of that. This is just, this is a committee. The other thing too is I want to tell you, I just think you're doing a great job. This is really good discourse. I think people are bringing a lot to it and helping us balance our thinking on this. And I love it when we're challenging some of the things that are in here and adding some more facts to it. So I just want to thank you so much for the way you're doing this. So
thank all of you for me too. I appreciate all of you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Take care, everyone.
Good night, all.
Good night.